All right, welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're diving deep, really deep, into the mind of one of philosophy's heavyweights, Immanuel Kant. Our quest? To figure out where our sense of duty comes from. We're on the hunt for a universal moral law, something that works for everyone, no matter where you are. So, let's get into it.
So, let me ask you something. Where do your moral rules actually come from? What tells you what's right and what's wrong? Is it your culture, your religion, maybe just your gut feelings? For most of us, the answer is probably a mix of all that. But Kant looked at this and saw a big problem. These foundations are kind of shaky, right? They change all the time and they're different for everybody.
And that's exactly where Kant comes in. He set himself this massive goal, to find a foundation for morality that was rock solid, something that wasn't based on our ever-changing feelings or desires or even what makes us happy. He was looking for a moral bedrock, something totally dependable in a sea of maybes and it depends.
So, in this first section, we're going to look at why Kant threw out the most popular candidate for a moral guide, our own happiness. He needed a moral compass, one that would always point true north, no matter what.
Okay, so for Kant, it really boils down to this choice. On one hand, you have what he called empirical foundations, things based on experience, like our desires or our pursuit of happiness. The problem? Well, what makes you happy might make me miserable. It's totally subjective, and it changes. So Kant looked to the other side, a rational foundation, something he called a priori, meaning it exists before experience. He was after a principle that was universal and necessary, kind of like 2 + 2 always equals 4.
And this quote from him just nails it. He says, "Morality isn't about how to make ourselves happy. Instead, it's about how we can become worthy of happiness." See the difference? He wasn't writing a self-help book on finding joy. He was crafting a blueprint for how to be a good person, someone who deserves to be happy. That's a whole different ballgame.
All right, so if happiness is off the table, then what's left? What's the answer? Well, this is where we get to Kant's truly revolutionary idea. A moral law that doesn't come from God or society or anything external. It comes from inside us, from our own ability to think rationally.
And he called it the categorical imperative. I know, it's a mouthful, right? But the idea behind it is incredibly powerful. Let's break it down. Imperative means it's a command, not a suggestion. And categorical means it's unconditional. It's not like, be honest if you want people to trust you. No, it's just be honest, full stop. It's a law that our own reason gives to itself, and it's meant to apply to everyone, everywhere, no matter what.
So this brings us to the first and most famous version of his big idea. He says that whenever you're about to do something, you should think about the personal rule or maxim that you're following. Then he gives us a test. You have to ask yourself, what would happen if everyone on the planet followed this same rule? Could a world like that even function? Could it exist without contradicting itself?
Okay, I know that sounds a little abstract, so let's make it super concrete. We're going to run Kant's test on a classic example that he actually used himself, the case of making a false promise.
So picture this. You're in a real financial bind. You're desperate for cash. Your only option seems to be to ask a friend for a loan. Here's the catch. You know deep down there's no way you can pay it back. So you're thinking about making a promise you know you can't keep. According to Kant, is that the right thing to do? All right, let's run the test. Step 1. What's your personal rule, your maxim? It's something like, when I'm in a tough spot, I'll make a promise I can't keep to get out of it. Okay. Step 2. Universalize it. Imagine a world where everyone does this. Anytime someone's in trouble, they make a fake promise. What happens next? That brings us to step 3. Look for the contradiction. In this world, the whole concept of a promise would just evaporate. It would become meaningless, right? Because a promise relies on trust, and in that world, trust is gone. So your personal rule, when you make it a universal law, literally destroys itself. That's the contradiction. And the conclusion, step 4, is that because the maxim self-destructs, it's against your moral duty. It's irrational and therefore immoral.
And this whole test, this way of thinking, it leads us to one of Kant's most powerful and honestly beautiful conclusions. Because if the moral law comes from our own reason, well, that says something pretty amazing about what it means to be human. Let's dig into that.
This is where we get to this incredible idea of autonomy. Now, when we hear that word, we usually think it just means freedom to do whatever we feel like. But for Kant, it's way deeper than that. Autonomy is our ability as rational beings to give the moral law to ourselves. It's this capacity for rational self-government that sets us apart. It's what makes us more than just animals acting on instinct or cogs in a machine. This, for Kant, is the very source of our freedom and our dignity.
And this idea of autonomy leads us straight to the second major version of his categorical imperative. And this one might be even more powerful. The logic goes like this. Because we are autonomous, because we are the lawmakers of the moral universe, each one of us has an intrinsic, absolute worth. We have dignity. And because of that, Kant says we have a duty to never treat other people, or even ourselves, simply as a tool, as a means to get what we want. We have to treat all of humanity, in every person, as an end in themselves.
And this is really the big takeaway from all this. For Kant, your dignity isn't something you earn. It's not based on how much money you have, what job you do, or how popular you are. It's unconditional. It comes from this incredible fact that you, yes, you, are a lawmaker in the moral universe. You are a source of the very law you are bound to follow.
So let's end with this. If Kant is right, if we are the authors of moral law, what does that mean for us? It gives us this radical freedom for sure. But doesn't it also hand us an absolutely massive responsibility? Something to think about. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer.